won't fly with her." Captain Richard Hale said it coldly, like he wasn't refusing a trained pilot. He was rejecting a threat. The operations manager froze at the cockpit door. In the right seat, Ava Brooks didn't look up. Her fingers stayed on the checklist. Calm, precise, unbothered. Behind them, more than 200 passengers were already buckled in, unaware that their flight had entered danger before the engines even started. Hale didn't even turn toward Ava. "I'm not letting a diversity experiment sit in my cockpit." For 1 second, no one breathed. Then Ava clicked her pen once and said quietly, "Hydraulic quantity?" Hale thought he had insulted her. Ava knew he had just exposed himself, because she wasn't on that flight to prove she belonged in the right seat. She was there to find out how far an arrogant captain and a corrupt airline would go to hide the truth. And hours later, at 32,000 feet, when the alarm screamed, the systems failed, and Captain Hale's hands started shaking over the controls, Ava Brooks would reach into her uniform pocket and place a federal badge on the console. That was the moment everyone learned the truth. The woman they called an experiment was actually the audit. The sky over Dallas-Fort Worth had the color of an old bruise. Not black anymore, not morning yet. Just that raw purple hour when the airport lights still ruled the earth and the first thin line of sun had not earned its place. Runway 18L stretched ahead like a blade under frost-colored lamps. Jet exhaust drifted low across the tarmac, crawling around the tires of fuel trucks and baggage carts. Somewhere beyond the glass of Terminal D, a woman laughed too loudly into a phone, a child cried from sleep, and an old man in a cowboy's cap folded his boarding pass with hands that had known work. Flight 712 to Seattle sat at gate D23 with its nose pointed toward the runway. Inside the cockpit, the air was warm, tight, and familiar. Filtered coffee sat in a paper cup near the center console, giving off that bitter airport smell that never quite hid the scent underneath it. Heated plastic, old leather seats, machine oil, and the faint metallic breath of instruments waking up. Captain Richard Hale sat in the left seat like a man carved into it, 59 years old, silver hair cut short, jaw square from years of forcing it still. His uniform jacket hung over the back of his seat with the ease of ownership. 4 stripes on his shoulder, 31 years flying for Meridian Atlantique, 22,000 hours in the air. He had crossed thunderstorms over Kansas, ice over Montana, fog over Boston, and had once landed a crippled 737 in Denver with one hydraulic line bleeding out like a cut vein. That was the story he liked people to know. The stories he did not like were buried deeper. In the right seat sat First Officer Ava Brooks, 32, black, calm. Her hair was pulled back clean beneath her cap. Her uniform looked pressed but not ornamental. She wore no nervous smile, no eager to please energy, no need to make the cockpit warmer than it was. Her hands moved over the checklist with quiet precision. Battery switch, checked. Standby power, checked. Fuel pumps, armed, IRS alignment, verified. Flight management system, cross-checking. She had the kind of stillness that made some men uncomfortable. Not silence from fear, silence from discipline. Richard watched her reflection in the make window instead of looking at her directly. He heard her voice once more, steady and low. Pre-flight checklist continuing. Parking brake? He did not answer. Ava turned her head slightly. Captain? Richard lifted his coffee, took a slow drink. The cup crackled in his hand. Then he said without looking at her, "I'm not flying with her." The words sat in the cockpit like smoke. Ava did not move. Outside, a ground crewman in an orange vest walked beneath the nose cone and slapped the fuselage twice with his palm. A habit. A little human goodbye to a machine. Behind them, the cockpit door remained open. At the threshold stood Gate Operations Manager Louise Martin, 48, tired eyes, wool coat over her uniform. Beside her was a young scheduling supervisor named Connor, who looked like he had been pulled from bed and ironed in a hurry. Louise blinked once. "Captain Hale," she said carefully, "First Officer Brooks is assigned to this flight." Richard turned now, but not toward Ava, toward Louise. "I saw the assignment. Then what's the issue?" He set his coffee down with a hard little tap. The issue is, I don't gamble with 206 passengers behind me. Ava's pen paused for half a second. Only half. Louise's face tightened. Nobody is asking you to gamble. Richard gave a dry laugh. That's exactly what this is. Connor shifted his weight. Louise lowered her voice. Captain, this aircraft is scheduled for departure in 23 minutes. Then get me a qualified first officer. Ava turned one page on the checklist. The paper made a soft sound, almost gentle. Richard finally looked at her then. Not fully, just enough to make sure the insult landed. You hearing this, Brooks? Ava met his eyes. I hear you, Captain. Her voice had no shake in it. That irritated him more than fear would have. Richard leaned back. The leather seat sighed beneath him. I've flown this route in crosswinds that would make a Navy pilot pray. I have trained captains who are retired now. I've pulled this company out of mistakes it never thanked me for. So when I tell you I'm not comfortable with a diversity experiment in the right seat, you can write that down. Connor looked at the floor. Louise inhaled through her nose. Ava clicked her pen once. Hydraulic quantity? She asked. Richard stared at her. Excuse me? Hydraulic quantity, Ava repeated. Pre-flight checklist item. He smiled without warmth. You think reading a checklist proves something? No, sir. Good. Flying the airplane proves something. The cockpit went very quiet. Outside the windshield, the purple sky had started to thin along the horizon. The runway lights shimmered in rows, red and white, patient and merciless. Richard's eyes narrowed. Careful. Ava looked back down at the panel. I am. Louise stepped further into the cockpit. Captain Hale, First Officer Brooks has met all Meridian Atlantic requirements in all Federal Line operation standards. She has 1,200 hours in type, excellent training records, and no safety violations. Richard's mouth pulled tight. Records, he said. Records are what people hide behind when they lack instincts. Ava continued the checklist. Hydraulic quantity. Louise spoke before Richard could. Normal. Ava marked it. Normal. Richard turned on Louise. You're going to let her run my cockpit now? Your cockpit? Ava asked softly. Richard looked back at her. Louise closed her eyes briefly. She knew that tone. It was not anger yet. It was the sound right before anger became paperwork. Ava kept her gaze on the instruments. With respect, Captain, this cockpit belongs to the airline, the FAA, and the passengers. Not to either one of us. Richard's jaw worked. Louise watched Ava carefully. There was no performance in her, no tremble, no heat, just a woman sitting in a place she had earned, being told she was decoration. From the cabin came the muffled sounds of boarding, wheels on carpet, overhead bins thumping, flight attendants greeting passengers with that bright, professional kindness that carried its own fatigue. Morning, welcome aboard. Seat 14C is down this aisle. Sir, that bag may need to be checked. Ava heard it all. She always did. Passengers trusted the cockpit door because they could not see what happened behind it. They trusted the uniforms, the calm voices, the clean white shirts. They trusted that the people in front were there because the truth had been checked. But Ava knew better. Truth could be hidden under signatures, buried in maintenance logs, deleted from servers, dressed up in compliance language and sent to regulators with a smile. Truth could be suffocated by men who thought seniority was holiness. Richard Hale had no idea who she really was. That was the only reason he was still talking. Louise said, Captain, we can either resolve this professionally now, or I can call flight ops and have them resolve it. Richard smiled. Call them. Connor swallowed. Louise pulled her phone from her coat pocket. Ava reached to the overhead panel and adjusted the air conditioning flow. The cabin packs hummed deeper. The cockpit air shifted, bringing out the old leather smell from the seatbacks. Her father used to smell like leather after work. Not aviation leather. Factory gloves. Steel dust. Winter sweat. He had worked 38 years in a rail yard outside St. Louis and never once called himself essential, though every man in town knew trains did not move without hands like his. He used to tell Ava, baby, don't raise your voice until you've run out of facts. She had not run out of facts, not even close. Louise spoke into her phone in a low voice near the cockpit door. Yes, this is Martin at D23. I need flight operations now. Flight 712. Captain, refusal. A pause. Yes, refusal. Ava did not look up. Richard drummed 2 fingers once on the armrest. You know what your problem is, Brooks? No, Captain. You think calm makes you competent. Ava wrote something in the margin of the checklist. Richard leaned toward her. Up here, when things go bad, the airplane doesn't care about your degree, your diversity scholarship, your pretty simulator scores, or whatever committee fast-tracked you into that seat. Ava turned her head. Neither do I. It landed clean. Richard's face changed. For a moment, Louise stopped talking. Ava continued, That's why I follow procedure. Richard let out a low laugh. Procedure. Yes. You ever lose an engine at night? Yes. You ever land with 30-knot crosswind shear? Yes. You ever smell an electrical fire at altitude? Yes. His smile faded a little. Ava looked back at the checklist. Bleed air? Richard did not answer. Ava waited. Louise returned, phone still in hand. Captain, flight operations says this assignment stands. You may file a formal objection after the flight. Richard's eyes stayed on Ava. And if I refuse? Louise's voice hardened. Then you'll be removed from command pending review. That got him, not fear, not shame, calculation. Richard looked through the windshield. A line of aircraft waited in the distance, tails glowing under blue taxi lights. Morning departures stacked up across America. People going to grandchildren, surgeries, funerals, business deals, second chances. A whole country strapped into narrow seats, trusting strangers. He could step off and become a story before sunrise, or he could fly and punish her quietly. He chose the second. Richard pulled his headset from the side hook and put it on. Fine. Louise nodded once. Thank you. He turned to Ava. Don't touch anything unless I tell you. Ava marked the checklist. Bleed air? She asked again. Richard's nostrils flared. Normal, Normal. Louise lingered at the door for 1 second longer. Her eyes met Ava's. Not apology. Not quite. More like warning. Then she stepped out and pulled the cockpit door shut. The latch clicked. A small sound, a final one. Richard reached up and switched on the fasten seatbelt sign. The chime rang through the cabin. Ava listened to it fade. In seat 3A, a retired school principal named Margaret Ellis looked up from her paperback. 72 years old, gray hair tucked beneath a knitted blue cap, wedding ring loose on her finger since her husband's passing. She had flown enough to know when a flight felt ordinary and when the air inside it felt wrong. She glanced toward the sealed cockpit door. The flight attendant, Naomi Shamwi, caught her eye and smiled. Everything okay, ma'am? Margaret smiled back. At my age, honey, I asked that question before every takeoff. Naomi laughed softly and moved on. In the cockpit, ground control cleared flight 712 for pushback. The tug driver's voice came through with a Texas drawl. Meridian 712, brakes released? Richard answered before Ava could. Brakes released. Ava watched his hand. Too fast, too sharp. He was angry enough to rush. That mattered. The aircraft shuddered as the tug began pushing them away from the gate. Terminal lights slid sideways through the windshield. The jet's shadow moved across wet concrete. Ava's reflection hovered over the runway beyond the glass. Calm face, still eyes. But beneath her uniform, near her ribs, inside a pocket sewn deeper than regulation allowed, rested a matte black federal badge case. Not for show, not yet. Her name in that case was not First Officer Ava Brooks. It was Senior Field Auditor Ava Brooks, Federal Aviation Safety Authority, 32 years old, youngest senior auditor in the division's history, former airline pilot, systems investigator, daughter of a rail worker who had died after a company ignored 3 written warnings about a faulty switch heater. She had spent 18 months following Meridian Atlantic's trail of missing maintenance flags, scrubbed pilot complaints, altered inspection cycles, and one name that appeared near the center of too many closed reports. Captain Richard Hale. Ava had not come on to Flight 712 to prove she deserved the right seat. She had come to see what happened when no one important was supposed to be watching. The engines began to spool. A low vibration moved through the floor. Richard's voice entered the radio, clean and practiced, but Ava could hear the pressure beneath it. Dallas ground, Meridian 712, ready to taxi. The tower responded. The airplane rolled forward. Ava looked out at the bruised purple dawn and placed 2 fingers lightly on the edge of the yoke. Not touching, ready. At 32,000 feet, the world looked forgiven. Clouds stretched below Flight 712 in long white fields, soft as cotton from a distance, hiding all the hard country underneath. The first sunlight had reached the wing, turning its edge silver. Inside the cabin, window shades were half open. Coffee carts rattled softly in the aisle. A baby slept against his mother's shoulder in 18F. A man in 9C snored with his mouth open. Margaret Ellis in 3A had given up on her paperback and was watching the wing cut through the sky. She had always loved that part, the impossible steadiness of it. A machine full of strangers, held up by math, fuel, and trust. In the cockpit, there was no trust, only procedure, and Richard Hale's contempt, breathing in the space between every word. Seattle Center handed us direct BOI, Ava said. Fuel burn remains within planned range. Weather at destination still VFR with scattered cloud layer. Richard gave no answer. He had spoken to her only when required since takeoff. Every instruction came clipped, every correction unnecessary. He had taken radio calls that belonged to her. He had rechecked her entries after watching her enter them correctly. He had asked for the same data twice, then sighed when she gave it both times without frustration. Men like Richard liked anger. Anger gave them something to point at. Ava gave him numbers. That made him meaner. Autopilot engaged, he said, though they both knew it had been in change for 23 minutes. Confirmed, Ava replied. Richard glanced at her side panel. Don't get comfortable. I'm not. You should be taking notes. I am. On flying, Brooks, not whatever complaint you plan to file. Ava looked down at the flight log. The aircraft hummed around them, not loud, never silent. Jet flight was made of layers, airflow over the fuselage, fans turning in the engines, ventilation through ducts, tiny rattles inside panels, distant cabin noise, the occasional soft click of systems doing what they had been built to do. Ava knew normal sounds. She also knew abnormal ones. The first one came at 0817 Central, a metallic click, small, dry, repeated twice beneath the main instrument panel. Tick, tick. Richard did not react. Ava's eyes moved to the electrical panel. Nothing. Tick. The third sound was lower. Did you hear that? Ava asked. Richard kept his eyes forward. Hear what? Metallic clicking under the center pedestal, possible relay cycling. It's an airplane. It clicks. This rhythm isn't normal. Richard looked at her like a mechanic watching a child hold a wrench. You've got 1,200 hours in type? Yes. I've got almost 15,000 in this family. I'm aware. Then be aware quietly. Ava scanned the panel. Electrical buses normal. Hydraulic pressure normal. Engine parameters stable. Cabin altitude stable. Autopilot holding. Flight director steady. Still something was wrong. The clicking stopped. For 20 seconds, the cockpit returned to its hum. Then the cabin lights flickered. Not out. Not fully. A quick dimming ran through the aircraft like a blink. The cockpit displays stayed lit, but Ava saw the cabin reflection darken in the cockpit door window and come back. From behind them came a faint murmur. Passengers waking. A flight attendant pausing in the aisle. Richard muttered, old bulbs. Ava looked at him. Entire cabin doesn't flicker from old bulbs. He pressed a control on the center console. Cabin crew probably hit a galley load wrong. The interphone chimed. Richard stared at it. Ava reached. He slapped her hand away. Not hard enough to injure, hard enough to mean it. I'll answer. Ava looked at his hand, then at his face. Richard picked up. Flight deck. Naomi's voice came through thin but steady. Captain, we had a brief cabin light flicker. Passengers noticed. Everything okay up there? Richard forced warmth into his voice. All normal, Naomi. Minor electrical load shift. Nothing to worry about. Ava watched the secondary electrical load display. There it was, a tremor in the reading. Not enough for a warning, enough for someone who knew what she was seeing. Captain Ava said when he hung up, "Left AC transfer bus showed a momentary drop. It recovered. It should not have dropped, Ed. It recovered," he repeated. Ava pulled up the electrical systems page. Richard's hand moved fast and pressed it away. "Leave it." She turned to him. "This may be related to the deferred maintenance item on the auxiliary power control relay." Richard's face hardened. That item was cleared. The clearance note was irregular. He went still. Ava felt it. There it was, not anger, recognition. "What did you say?" "The clearance note doesn't match standard maintenance language." Richard's voice lowered. "You reviewing maintenance paperwork now?" "Yes." "As first officer?" "As crew." He stared. The clicking came again. Tick, tick, tick. This time Richard heard it. A small amber advisory light appeared, then vanished. Ava caught it before it disappeared. LEC config. Less than 1 second. Richard sat forward. Ava said, "We need to run the electrical irregularity checklist." "No." "Captain?" It was transient. It flashed ELEC config. It cleared. Warnings that clear can still indicate intermittent failure. And checklists for every ghost light get you chasing shadows while burning fuel and scaring passengers. Ava held his gaze. Ghost lights don't click. Richard's right hand tightened around the yoke, even though the autopilot was flying. He hated that she had heard it, hated that she had seen it, hated more that she was right enough to make him feel old. Age was not the enemy. Ava knew that. Age could be a library. It could be pattern recognition, judgment bought with pain. The best pilots she had known were older men and women who carried storms in their bones and still respected a checklist. But Richard Hale had mistaken years for immunity. He reached for his coffee and found it cold. Ava opened a side pocket in her flight bag. Richard sneered. "What now?" She took out a small sealed cup of Greek yogurt and a packet of chia seeds. He stared at it. "You having breakfast?" "I need my hands steady." "Good God." Ava peeled back the lid, poured in the chia, stirred once with a plastic spoon, and took a small bite. Richard shook his head. "This is what the profession has become." Ava swallowed. "My blood sugar doesn't care about your profession." He turned away. She ate 2 more small bites, enough to ground her body. Protein, texture, something real against the rising charge in the air. Her father used to keep peanuts in his lunchbox and eat 3 before a dangerous rail coupling. Not because he was hungry, because ritual gave fear somewhere to stand. Ava sealed the cup and placed it aside. The aircraft gave a faint shudder. Not turbulence, a yaw correction. The autopilot compensated before most passengers could feel it. Ava saw it on the rudder trim indicator. "Captain? I see it." The number changed again. Small correction, then another. Ava pulled up the systems page before he could stop her. This time Richard did not move. On the display, electrical load on the left bus trembled, dropped, recovered, then dropped again. A secondary message appeared. APU gen relay fault. That made no sense at cruising altitude with APU offline. Unless the aircraft system believed a relay existed in a state it should not. Unless someone had signed off a relay problem without fixing the root cause. Unless the fault had migrated into an integrated control module. Ava's pulse stayed slow. "Run the checklist," she said. Richard's face had lost color, but his voice stayed hard. "I make the call." "Then make it." He looked at the panel, then at the flight path, then at the fuel numbers. The airline had pressure. Always pressure. On-time arrivals. No diversions unless necessary. No maintenance delays unless undeniable. No paperwork that opened audits. A captain like Richard understood the unwritten system. Keep the plane moving, keep the log clean, keep management happy, and retire before the bill came due. Ava watched his mind choose reputation over risk. He said, "We monitor." Ava leaned slightly toward him. "With 206 passengers?" His eyes snapped to hers. "Don't use passengers as theater. I'm using them as the reason." The master caution sounded, a single chime. Amber light. This one stayed. ELEC, the cockpit changed, not physically. The same panels, same seats, same morning light on the windshield. But now the airplane had spoken loudly enough that denial had to work harder. Richard canceled the caution. Electrical checklist, Ava said. He reached for the quick reference handbook, flipped pages too fast, overshot the section, came back. His thumb pressed the paper. Read it, he said. Ava began. Electrical system non-normal. Condition. One or more electrical system faults indicated. Step 1, confirm affected bus. Richard's eyes moved over the display. Left AC transfer bus unstable. Step 2, autopilot status? Engaged. Step 3, avoid unnecessary electrical load changes. He nodded once. The clicking became a buzz. Ava stopped reading. The left primary flight display flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. Richard's breath caught. He covered it with anger. Keep reading. Captain, we need to advise ATC and prepare for possible diversion. No, we have electrical instability and possible flight display interruption. We are not declaring for a bad relay. This is deeper than a relay. He turned on her. You don't know that. I do. The words came out before she could dress them. Richard froze. Ava felt the line under her feet. Cross it now, the investigation changes. Wait too long, the airplane might make the decision for her. Richard's voice was quiet. What exactly do you know? Before Ava could answer, the autopilot gave one sharp tone. The control yoke twitched under Richard's hand. The aircraft rolled 2 degrees right. Autopilot corrected, then rolled again. Ava's eyes went to the annunciator panel. CMD. A flickered. CMDB flashed briefly. Both stabilized. Richard whispered, no. Ava heard it, a small word, a frightened word. The first honest thing he had said all morning. The master warning that came without mercy. Red lights, hard alarm. A sound designed not to be ignored. For 3 seconds, the cockpit was all noise and no language. The left primary flight display went black. The autopilot disconnected. The aircraft snapped into manual flight with a shallow right bank and a nose-down tendency that was not dramatic enough for a movie, but plenty dramatic for a full airplane at 32,000 feet. Richard grabbed the yoke, too hard. He pulled back, then overcorrected left. The airplane answered like an animal startled from sleep. Altitude slipped. Ava's voice cut through the warning. Autopilot disconnect confirmed. I have instruments on right side. Bank 5 degrees, right. Nose down 3. Correcting required. Richard did not respond. His eyes were fixed on the dead left display. My screen? Use standby attitude, Ava said. He reached toward the wrong panel. No, Captain, standby attitude is center stack. His hand moved again, shaky now. The aircraft banked left. Passengers felt it. In the cabin, coffee slid across a tray table in row 6. A woman gasped. Margaret Ellis gripped her armrest, not with panic, but with recognition. She had survived enough long nights in hospitals with her late husband to know when professionals were pretending not to be scared. Naomi braced herself near the forward galley. The plane dropped. A baby woke crying. In the cockpit, Richard tried to reset the left display. Ava said louder, "Stop troubleshooting. Fly the aircraft." "I am flying." "You're chasing the failure." "I said I have it." The airspeed crept up. The nose dipped. Altitude lost now 600 feet. Ava put her right hand near the yoke. "Captain, your inputs are unstable." His face flushed red. "Do not touch my controls." Another warning sounded. "Bank angle." The mechanical voice repeated it. "Bank angle." Richard pulled left again. Wrong direction. Ava saw the turn coordinator, saw the altitude trend, saw the airspeed, saw Richard's brain collapse into pride and panic. Her father's voice came from somewhere old. "Don't raise your voice until you've run out of facts." She had run out of time. Ava's left hand pressed the push to talk. Seattle Center, Meridian 712 declaring emergency. Flight control and electrical system irregularity. Unable to maintain assigned altitude momentarily. Request block altitude and vectors to nearest suitable. Richard turned on her. "What the hell are you doing?" Avia's right hand closed on the yoke. My aircraft. Richard tried to resist. She did not fight him like an angry person. She moved like a trained one. Firm pressure, level wings, nose attitude corrected, power adjusted, trim relieved, instruments cross-checked, standby and right side display aligned. Airspeed brought back inside target range. The airplane steadied, not perfectly, but enough. The red warning still flashed. The dead display remained black. The cockpit still buzzed with messages, yet the aircraft stopped falling away from them. Ava said, "My aircraft." Richard's hands were still on the yoke. Ava looked at him. "Say it." He breathed hard. "Captain, say it." The word came like a tooth pulled without anesthetic. "Your aircraft." "I have the aircraft." She flew. For the next 30 seconds, nobody in the cockpit spoke except the radio. Seattle Center answered, sharper now. "Meridian 712, roger emergency. You are cleared block altitude flight level 300 to 3020. Turn left heading 280. Nearest suitable is Boise. Confirm souls and fuel." Avia replied, "Meridian 712, heading 280, block 300 to 320. Souls on board 212 including crew. Fuel 5.8 hours. Richard stared at her, not because she was flying, because she was flying well. He had expected hesitation, a plea, some crack he could use later. Instead, Ava Brooks had taken a wounded aircraft in both hands and made it listen. She called for Naomi through the interphone. "Flight deck." Naomi's voice was tight. "Yes? This is First Officer Brooks. We have declared an emergency due to electrical irregularity. Aircraft is under control. Prepare cabin for possible diversion into Boise. No brace command at this time. I'll update you in 2 minutes." A beat. "Understood." Ava turned back to Richard. "QRH. Electrical non-normal. Continue from current fault state. I will fly. You will read." His eyes sharpened, wounded pride trying to stand again. "You don't give orders to a captain." "I do when the captain becomes a hazard." The cockpit air seemed to lose heat. Richard whispered, "You're finished." Ava kept her eyes on the attitude indicator. "No, Captain." Then with one hand steady on the controls, she reached into the inside pocket of her uniform jacket. Richard watched. She removed a matte black badge case. It was worn at the corners, not flashy, not dramatic, the kind of thing that did not need to shine. She placed it on the center console between them. The case opened, federal seal, identification card, photograph, name, Ava Brooks, Senior Field Auditor, Federal Aviation Safety Authority. Richard's face emptied, not slowly, all at once. Ava said, "I am not your co-pilot, Captain Hale." The words were quiet enough that he had to listen. "I am FASA Senior Auditor Ava Brooks. This flight is part of a federal safety investigation into Meridian Atlantic's suppression of pilot safety reports, irregular maintenance sign-offs, and retaliatory crew scheduling." Richard looked from the badge to her face. "You can't, I can." His mouth opened, but no sentence came. Ava continued flying. "For the last 18 months, your name has appeared in connection with 27 internal safety complaints that were either downgraded, reassigned, or deleted after submission. Your captain override code was used on 6 maintenance deferrals that later disappeared from active review. This aircraft's auxiliary power control relay issue was one of them." Richard's breathing turned shallow. "That's not... Do not lie to me while I am flying your airplane through the consequences." The warning alarm changed tone. Ava adjusted pitch. "Read the checklist." Richard did not move. "Captain." His hand reached for the QRH. The paper trembled slightly. Ava saw it and felt no triumph, only grief. Because this was what arrogance did when finally stripped down. It did not become evil laughter. It became an aging man with shaking hands, realizing too late that the machine never cared who he thought he was. Richard read, "Electrical non-normal continued. If primary flight display, unavailable. Transfer display if required. Right display usable," Ava said. "Standby instruments cross-checked. Continue. If AC transfer bus unstable, isolate affected bus. Confirm switch." He hesitated. Ava said, "Point before action." He pointed. She confirmed. "Correct switch. Isolate." He moved it. The clicking stopped. For a moment, the cockpit dropped into a strange quiet. Not silence. Engines still roared, air still moved. The airplane still flew, but the angry metallic tick was gone. Ava exhaled once through her nose. Electrical load stabilized. Some warnings remain. The left display did not return, but the cascading failure had been contained. Ava called center again. "Meridian 712 requesting descent in Vectors Boise. We'll need emergency equipment standing by as precaution." Meridian 712 cleared direct Boise. "Descend and maintain flight level 240. Ava acknowledged. Richard sat beside her, QRH open, badge between them like a stone on a grave. He stared at the seal. "You set me up," he said. Ava's eyes stayed forward. "No, you showed up," he swallowed. "You don't understand what this company asks of captains." "I understand exactly what it asks. You think this is clean? You think every airplane leaves perfect? You think every logbook tells the whole truth? No. Then don't sit there like a saint." Ava turned slightly. "My father died because men with clean shirts decided a broken warning could wait until Monday." Richard said nothing. "The rail yard called it a paperwork error. The company called it an unfortunate event. My mother called it what it was." She banked gently onto the assigned heading. "Murder by convenience." Richard looked away. Ava continued. "Safety systems are written in blood, Captain. Every checklist, every maintenance interval, every required report. Somebody got hurt before somebody wrote it down. You knew that once." That landed. Somewhere beneath his pride, an older Richard Hale stirred. A man who had once loved airplanes because they demanded honesty. A man who had once corrected younger pilots gently. A man who had once filed reports without caring who got annoyed. Then career had hardened him. Praise had trained him. Management had learned his price, not money. Status, the deadliest bribe for a proud man. Ava said, "Now read the descent checklist." He read. His voice cracked on the first line, then steadied. In the cabin, Naomi made the announcement with professional calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Naomi from the flight deck. We are diverting to Boise as a precaution due to a technical issue. The aircraft is under control. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened and follow crew instructions." Margaret Ellis looked around at the younger passengers whose faces had gone pale. She lifted her voice just enough for row 3 to hear. "I've flown through worse coffee than this, folks. Buckle up and let the people up front work." A few nervous laughs broke through the cabin. Naomi caught Margaret's eye and gave a small, grateful nod. Up front, Ava guided Flight 712 down through bright morning air. The mountains rose in the distance. Hard country, honest country. Boise appeared beneath a broken layer of cloud, runway paved and pale against the brown-green land. Ava flew the approach with both hands light and precise. The aircraft was heavier than ideal, systems degraded but stable. Emergency vehicles waited in a red and yellow line beside the runway. Their lights flashed in the clean morning sun. Richard handled radio calls now because Ava told him to, not because he had recovered command, because command, real command, uses every remaining resource. Meridian 712, wind 210 at 8, runway 28 left, cleared to land, emergency equipment, standing by. Richard's voice was rough. "Cleared to land 28 left, Meridian 712. Ava said, "Landing checklist." He read it. His old instincts had returned enough to be useful. There was pain in that too. He was not incompetent. He had never been incompetent. That was the tragedy. He had been capable enough to know better. Flaps set, gear down, speed steady. At 500 feet, the runway filled the windshield. Ava made tiny corrections. No drama, no speech, just work. At 50 feet, she eased back. At 30, the aircraft floated. At 10, the main gear kissed the runway with a firm, clean thump. Spoilers deployed. Reverse thrust roared. Passengers lurched forward against their belts, then back. The aircraft slowed. Naomi closed her eyes for half a second. Margaret Ellis whispered, "Good girl." though she did not yet know who had landed them. Ava turned off the runway and stopped where emergency crews directed. For the first time since the warning, she took her hands fully off the controls. The cockpit smelled hotter now. Electrical heat, coffee gone stale, sweat under cotton, old leather holding everything. Richard stared forward. Ava keyed the radio. Boise Tower, Meridian 712, stop clear of runway. Request emergency crews inspect exterior for heat or visible damage. We will remain powered as configured pending evaluation. Meridian 712, roger, equipment approaching. Then Ava switched frequency. Meridian Atlantic Operations, this is Flight 712. A different voice came on, corporate comm. Flight 712 Operations, we're tracking your diversion. Captain Hale, can you advise nature of emergency? Abid answered. This is Senior FASA Auditor Ava Brooks aboard Flight 712. Captain Hale is no longer acting as pilot in command for the purposes of this safety investigation. Preserve all communications, dispatch notes, maintenance records, aircraft health monitoring data, and crew scheduling records related to this flight in aircraft tail number N784MA. Silence, then say again your identification. Ava repeated it. Richard closed his eyes. Operations changed tone. Flight 712 will need to verify. You will not alter, delete, reclassify, migrate, or archive any file connected to this aircraft, this crew, or the 37 prior submissions tied to Captain Hale's override code. A preservation order has already been filed with federal authority. Confirmation receipt is time-stamped. Another silence. This one was heavier. Ava reached into her flight bag and removed an encrypted drive, small and black, with a strip of red tape across one side. She connected it to the secure tablet mounted beside her seat. Richard watched. What are you doing? My job. His voice dropped. Ava. It was the first time he had used her first name. She did not look at him. On the screen, files populated in clean rows. Maintenance deferral logs, crew safety reports, captain override records, internal email exports, audio transcripts, deleted complaint recovery, tail N784MA relem. Chain. Ava sent the package through the federal encrypted channel. Upload began. 1%. 3. 7. Richard's face looked older with every number. You don't know what you're starting, he said. Ava kept watching the upload. I know exactly what I'm ending. Outside, emergency crews rolled beneath the aircraft, scanning panels with thermal equipment. Passengers remained seated, phones out now, some recording. Word had begun to move through the cabin in whispers. Federal investigator. Captain removed. Emergency landing. Something covered up. People love rumors because rumor is how truth knocks before it has documents. At Meridian Atlantic headquarters in Dallas, the call hit the operations floor like a dropped wrench. Vice President of Flight Standards, Martin Kessler, stood in a glass office overlooking rows of dispatchers. 62, smooth suit, perfect hair, hands that had never carried luggage heavier than a leather briefcase. He had built a career on phrases like risk-based flexibility and operational continuity. When his assistant said FASA was on Flight 712, he did not ask whether passengers were safe. He asked, who authorized that crew pairing? That question would follow him. By 10:14 Mountain Time, the encrypted package reached FASA Command. By 10:22, federal preservation notices hit Meridian Atlantic's legal department. By 10:31, 3 internal servers were locked under emergency order. By 10:40, news helicopters began lifting in Boise. Ava remained in the cockpit until the last passenger had left. She would not let Meridian personnel enter first. Not maintenance, not local management, not anyone who might pocket a paper, wipe a panel, or claim a recording failed. Naomi opened the cockpit door only after Ava gave permission. The flight attendant looked at Richard, then Ava, then the badge still resting on the console. Naomi's eyes filled, but she held herself upright. Passengers are off, she said. No injuries, a few shaken up. Thank you, Ava said. Naomi nodded toward the cabin. There's a woman in 3A who wants to know who landed the plane. Ava almost smiled. Tell her the crew did. Naomi looked at Richard again, then back at Ava. Yes, ma'am. When Ava finally stepped into the cabin, it smelled of spilled coffee, fear, and recycled air. Seatbelts hung loose. A child's stuffed dinosaur lay under 12B. A paperback sat open in 3A. Margaret Ellis stood in the jet bridge entrance, cane in one hand, blue cap slightly crooked. She looked Ava up and down. You the one? Ava paused. The one what, ma'am? The one with steady hands. Ava's face softened. I was part of the crew. Margaret snorted. I was a principal for 41 years. Don't hand me cafeteria peas and call them Sunday dinner. Ava smiled despite herself. Yes, ma'am, I landed the aircraft. Margaret reached out, took Ava's hand, and squeezed it. Her fingers were thin, warm, and strong. Then thank you. Ava looked at their joined hands. All the noise, all the alarms, all the paperwork, all the ugliness of Richard Hale's first words that morning, none of it had cut as steep as that simple pressure from an old woman who knew dignity when she saw it. You're welcome, Ava said. Richard emerged behind her. Passengers recognized him from boarding, from the captain's voice, from his uniform. Nobody clapped, nobody shouted. That was worse. They watched. Richard Hale, who had spent 31 years walking through airports as if every gate belonged to him, stepped into a jet bridge full of silence. Margaret looked at him. Not cruelly. Worse. Clearly. Richard lowered his eyes. The public reckoning did not happen all at once. It happened in pieces. The first piece was a leaked airport video of Flight 712 surrounded by emergency trucks. The second was a passenger's shaky phone recording of Naomi's announcement. The third was the federal statement. FASA had opened a formal investigation into Meridian Atlantic's safety reporting and maintenance compliance practices. The fourth was the number, 41. 41 serious safety complaints over 3 years had been downgraded, buried, or deleted. Hydraulic irregularities, electrical faults, pilot fatigue reports, deferred maintenance escalations, crew intimidation complaints, aircraft returned to service with unresolved repeat defects, a pattern so clear that even corporate language could not fog it. Then came the names: Martin Kessler, 2 regional maintenance directors, a compliance attorney, a scheduling executive, Captain Richard Hale, not accused in the same way, not guilty of the same acts, but connected by the same machine. Ava's report was not emotional. It did not need to be. It listed dates, times, codes, signatures, server paths, recovered deletions, cockpit recordings, dispatch pressure messages, and pilot statements from men and women who had been told they were not team players for writing down what they saw. One first officer had filed 3 reports about tail N7 and 84MA's electrical anomalies. His upgrade to captain had been delayed. One mechanic had refused to sign off the relay replacement without a deeper module inspection. He had been transferred to nights. One flight attendant had reported repeated cabin light, flickers, and burning smells. Her complaint had been marked customer comfort issue. Ava had found them all, not because she was lucky, because she listened to people power had trained itself to ignore. Richard Hale's part was smaller than some, larger than he wanted. He had used his seniority to pressure crews. He had mocked complaints. He had signed captain assessments that labeled cautious pilots weak under operational stress. He had allowed management to use his reputation as a shield. And on Flight 712, with the problem alive in front of him, he had chosen denial. That could not be deleted. The cockpit voice recorder had heard everything. I'm not flying with her. Diversity experiment. Don't touch my controls. My aircraft. Say it. Your aircraft. The country heard those words within a week. Not all at once, not officially, but enough. In living rooms, diners, union halls, retirement communities, mechanic shops, in airport break rooms. People watched segments on television and online. Older viewers recognized the shape of it immediately. They had seen men like Richard. They had worked under men like Kessler. They had watched companies praise safety on posters while punishing the people who practiced it. Ava did not go on morning shows. She did not sell the story. She gave one federal statement from behind a plain wooden podium. She wore her uniform. No jewelry except small silver studs. No smile for cameras. Competence is not a slogan, she said. Safety is not a branding department. Every person who reports a problem is protecting strangers they will never meet. When those reports are buried, the risk does not disappear. It boards the next flight. Then she stepped away. Reporters shouted questions. She answered none. Richard Hale watched the statement from a hotel room near Boise Airport. Meridian had placed him there while the inquiry began, though by then everyone knew administrative leave was just a waiting room with nicer lamps. He sat on the edge of the bed in his undershirt. His captain's jacket hung over a chair, 4 stripes catching no light. On the muted television, Ava walked away from the podium. Richard looked down at his hands. They were still good hands. That was the hell of it. Hands that knew throttles and trim wheels. Hands that had once saved lives. Hands that had also signed reports he had no right to dismiss. His phone buzzed, a message from Martin Kessler. Do not speak to investigators without counsel. Company strategy forthcoming. Richard read it twice, then deleted it. A minute later, he picked up the hotel phone and called the federal number printed on the notice under his door. When the investigator answered, Richard's voice was rough. This is Captain Richard Hale. A pause. I'm ready to give a statement. 4 weeks later, the morning over Dallas was bright enough to make the terminal glass shine. No purple bruise this time, just sun. It spilled through the long windows of Terminal D and painted gold bars across the polished floor. Travelers moved through them with carry-ons and coffee cups, with neck pillows and strollers, with the tired faith that their lives would lift into the air and return safely somewhere else. Ava Brooks walked through the terminal in a captain's uniform, 4 stripes on her shoulders. Not borrowed, not symbolic, earned. The uniform fit differently than the first officer's jacket. Not because of the fabric, because of the weight people put on it when they saw her coming. Some recognized her. A baggage handler near the service door straightened. A young gate agent whispered to another, then smiled. An older man in a Vietnam veteran cap touched 2 fingers to the brim, not quite a salute, not quite a greeting. Ava nodded back. At gate D23, the same morning crew was working another Seattle departure. Louise Martin stood by the counter with a tablet in her hand. When she saw Ava, her face changed, relief first, then pride, then something close to apology that did not ask to be forgiven quickly. Captain Brooks, Louise said. Ava stopped. Louise. The title hung between them, not vanity, history. Louise looked toward the aircraft. They're ready for you, Ava nodded. How's Connor? Transferred to training support, voluntarily. Ava almost smiled. Good. Louise lowered her voice. Kessler's out. I heard. 2 maintenance directors, too. Legals pretending they retired to spend time with family. They can spend it with subpoenas. Louise let out a surprised laugh, then grew serious. Richard gave a statement. Ava looked past her out the window, where the aircraft waited in morning light. Yes. He named people. Yes. Did that surprise you? Ava considered the question. No. Louise studied her. After what he said to you? Ava's voice stayed calm. People are rarely only the worst thing they have done. Louise looked down. No, but sometimes that thing is enough. Ava nodded. Yes. Inside the jet bridge, the air held that familiar airport chill. Rubber flooring, metal walls, the faint smell of rainwater tracked in by thousands of shoes. Though the day outside was dry, every airport had ghosts if you knew where to stand. Departures that never happened, arguments before honeymoons, sons who did not turn around when mothers waved, pilots carrying bad news behind clean faces. Ava paused halfway down. She touched the badge case in her inner pocket. Still there, but today it was not the point. Today she was not undercover. Today everybody knew exactly who she was. At the aircraft door, Naomi stood waiting. She grinned before she could stop herself. Morning, Captain. Morning, Naomi. Coffee's fresh, not good, but fresh. That's all we can ask of airport coffee. Naomi stepped aside. The cockpit door was open. A young first officer stood inside near the right seat, checking charts. He turned quickly when Ava entered. First Officer Daniel Reeves, 29. White, former Air Force mechanic before flight school. New to Meridian Atlantic, old enough in the eyes to know what responsibility cost. His uniform looked freshly pressed. His nerves did not. He stood straight and gave her a respectful salute. Not theatrical, not mocking, a clean gesture from one professional to another. Captain Brooks, Ava looked at him. At ease, Daniel. We're not launching from an aircraft carrier. He dropped his hand, embarrassed. Yes, ma'am. She set her flight bag down beside the left seat. The left seat. For a moment, she did not sit. She looked at it. Old leather, warm from the morning sun. The same type of seat Richard had occupied like a throne. But it had never been a throne. It was a workstation, a responsibility, a place where ego had no oxygen. Ava ran her fingers once over the armrest. Weathered texture, tiny cracks, human history pressed into material. Then she sat. The seat accepted her without ceremony. Daniel remained standing. Ava glanced at him. You can breathe. He exhaled. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready. Yes, Captain. She began the pre-flight. Battery switch, checked. Standby power, checked. Fuel pumps and IRS alignment. Verified, flight management system. Cross-checking. Daniel moved smoothly but carefully. He called out items with respect, not fear. Ava watched without hovering. Corrected once, confirmed twice. Let him work. That mattered. Authority was not taking up all the air in a room. Authority was making the room safe enough for truth. Hydraulic quantity? Ava asked. Daniel checked. Normal. Normal. The word carried memory. Not pain now, shape. Naomi appeared at the cockpit door. Boarding in 5. Thank you. She hesitated. There's a passenger in 3A again. Ava looked up. Naomi smiled. Blue cap. Ava shook her head softly. Of course there is. A few minutes later, Margaret Ellis stepped into the aircraft with her cane, her paperback, and her blue knitted cap. She stopped at the cockpit door before turning toward first class. Well, Margaret said, look who got the good chair. Ava turned from the left seat. Good morning, Mrs. Ellis. Margaret's eyebrows rose. You remembered. I remember steady passengers. Margaret leaned on her cane. And I remember steady hands. Daniel looked between them, trying not to smile. Margaret pointed at him. You listened to her. Daniel said, yes, ma'am. Not because she's famous. Famous doesn't land planes. Listen because she knows when a machine is telling the truth. Ava's throat tightened unexpectedly. Margaret gave a satisfied nod and moved to her seat. Daniel waited until she was gone. Friend of yours? Ava looked at the instruments coming alive in front of her. Witness. To the investigation? To dignity. Daniel did not answer. He seemed to understand enough not to ruin it with words. As boarding continued, news played silently on a passenger's phone near the front. A headline crawled beneath footage of Meridian headquarters. Federal safety probe expands. Meridian executives face congressional questions. Pilot reporting protections under review. The industry had shifted. Not fully, not magically. No story worth telling ends with the whole world fixed. But 41 buried complaints were no longer buried. Mechanics were speaking. First officers were filing. Flight attendants were documenting. Older captains, the good ones, were stepping into training rooms and saying what should have been said long ago. If the junior person sees something, you listen. If maintenance writes it up, you respect it. If a warning appears, you do not negotiate with it for the sake of a schedule. Richard Hale's license remained suspended pending final review. His career at Meridian was over. His legacy had cracked in public. But his statement had helped widen the case. Ava did not forgive him for the cockpit. Forgiveness was not the same as accuracy. He had done wrong. Then, when stripped of every excuse, he had told part of the truth. That mattered, not enough to erase, enough to record. The boarding door closed. The cockpit door remained open for the final paperwork. Louise's voice came through the interphone. Captain Brooks, final passenger count 204 plus crew. Door closing on your command. Ava looked to Daniel. Ready? He checked once more. Ready. Ava reached for the interphone. Close it up. The main cabin door sealed. The aircraft became its own world. Ava made the welcome announcement herself. Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, this is Captain Ava Brooks. Welcome aboard Meridian Atlantic Flight 712 with service to Seattle. We're expecting a smooth climb with some light weather over Idaho. Our crew is ready, the aircraft has been inspected, and we'll keep you informed every step of the way. Thank you for trusting us with your morning. She stopped there. No flourish. Trust did not need decoration. In seat 3A, Margaret Ellis smiled and closed her eyes. At the gate window, Louise watched the jet bridge pull away. Out on the ramp, a ground crewman in an orange vest stood beneath the nose cone. He looked up, raised his palm, and slapped the fuselage twice. A little human goodbye to a machine. Ava saw it. She smiled. Ground Meridian 712 ready for pushback. The answer came through clear. Meridian 712 pushback approved. The aircraft began to move. Terminal D slid away from the windshield. Sun flashed across the glass towers. The runway waited ahead. Not like a blade now, but like a promise measured in asphalt and light. Daniel read the taxi checklist. Ava answered each item. No one rushed. No one performed. No one treated the checklist like an insult. At the hold short line, they waited as another aircraft lifted into the blue, wheels folding into its belly, wings flashing once before it climbed away. Ava watched it go. She thought of her father in the rail yard, lunchbox in hand. Thought of his warning letters ignored. Thought of her mother sitting at the kitchen table with a company envelope unopened before her. Thought of every worker, pilot, mechanic, nurse, teacher, driver, and clerk who had been told to be quiet by people whose comfort depended on silence. Then the tower called. Meridian 712, runway 18 left, cleared for takeoff. Daniel looked at her. Ava placed her hand on the throttles. Cleared for takeoff. The engines rose. Not a roar at first, a gathering. The aircraft rolled, slow, then faster, runway lights blurring past. Ava's eyes moved cleanly, airspeed alive, engine stable, center line held. Daniel called, 81, checked. The nose pressed into morning. V1, decision, rotate. Ava eased back. The aircraft lifted. Dallas fell away beneath them. For 1 second, as the wheels left the ground, the whole machine seemed to hang between what had been and what could still be saved. Then it climbed, steady, honest, free. And somewhere beneath the sound of engines, beneath the language of checklists and radios and procedure, there was the truth Ava Brooks had carried all along. Competence does not ask for permission. Integrity is the only wing that truly keeps you flying.